Okay, bit more of a wordy one this time. So you have decided on which area of France you want to live in. You have found some properties to look at, and you've done your viewings, and now you've made an offer which has been accepted. The question I get asked a lot is what happens next. A quick word about offers. Whether you're buying through an agent or privately, make sure everything you want is covered. I'll do another whole video about what are known as suspensive clauses or clause suspensive, but in essence these are clauses that allow you to pull out of a sale without losing your deposit. So for example, if installing a swimming pool is an absolute must for you, then you would put in a clause saying that permission for a pool has to be granted or you'll not proceed. But I can go into that kind of thing in more detail in another video. Suffice to say, it is very important. Once the offer has been agreed, what is called a compromis de vente is drawn up. This is basically the initial agreement to sell, which is signed by both buyer and seller. As part of this process, there are a number of documents that have to be provided. Initially, the seller needs to have a full set of diagnostics done. These will definitely include electricity, lead and asbestos, as well as a DPE report. This is the Diagnostic Performance Energetique report, which outlines the fuel efficiency of the house. Shall we say opinion is divided on the value of this, but nevertheless it is obligatory. In fact, this report is in the process of changing again, quite significantly, but I'll go into that in another video as well, or we'll be here all day. Other diagnostics could be for gas, if there's any kind of gas installation, or termites if the property is in an affected area. You, as the buyer, will see all these reports before you have to sign anything committing yourself. Again, diagnostics, big important area, so I'll go into more detail another time. The other big issue covered at this point is drainage. So if the house is on mains drains, then the owner needs to provide an attestation, usually from the water board, stating that the mains drains installation conforms. And if the house is on a fosse septique or a septic tank, then the same thing has to be provided. For septic tanks, this report has to be less than 3 years old or it's invalid. Again, another crucial area, so I'll go into that in more detail in another video. The whole video about drainage, but you can't wait. So you can buy a house with a non-conforming tank, but there are things that need to happen. As for the diagnostics, they're purely for information. The seller is not obligated to fix any anomalies that are thrown up, but this could be part of the negotiation and go in as one of the suspensive clauses I mentioned earlier. If, for example, the report shows an asbestos pipe in a cellar, you could add a clause, with the seller's agreement of course, to have that removed before the day of sale. The other crucial thing that needs to be checked is what's known as the designation of the house. If you're buying for an agency, they will do this. There is a description of the property written into the Sales Act. What needs to be checked is that the description of the house when the current owners bought it is the same as the house now. So for example, if the house had 2 bedrooms when they bought it, it needs to still have 2 bedrooms. But if, for example, they've converted an attic into another bedroom, then all the relevant planning permissions and paperwork will have to be provided. Again, another huge area which I'll go into more detail in another video. So that's drains and then planning permission. So I hope you've got lots of popcorn. So the compromis de vente is drawn up. This process can take anywhere between days and months depending on the circumstances. This then goes to the buyers who sign it. This signed copy then goes to the sellers who also sign it. They are then legally tied into the process. There is then a cooling off period of 10 days. An SRU letter is sent to the buyers. This stands for brace yourself, Solidarité et Renouvellement Urbain. As buyers, you have 10 days to pull out after receipt of this letter. At the end of the 10 days, you pay your 10% deposit or whatever was agreed in the sales contract, and at that point you are tied into the process. So if you pull out without good cause, the deposit is kept by the sellers. In the same way, if the sellers pull out, when they're liable to give you as buyers 10% of the value of the property. At this point, the notaire, who's the French version of the solicitor, swings into action. Some of them swing a lot faster than others, it must be said. And they do all the conveyancing work. Notifying SAFA, essentially a French farming organisation that can sometimes preemptively buy properties, again for another video, and checking with the commune that the house is allowed to be there and no roads being built nearby, all the usual kind of stuff. This process usually takes a minimum of 2 months. The notaire then sends out a request for the balance of funds from the buyer. This has to be by bank transfer, no cheques and no cash. And a meeting date is agreed between buyer, seller and notaire, where everyone sits down, and unless the notaire has the whiz-bang electronic signing system, which a lot don't because it's very expensive, sign hundreds of bits of paper. This is the acte de vente, and at that point the house is now yours. So as buyer, you will need to provide various documents throughout the process, so it's a good idea to have them ready in advance. Birth certificates, wedding certificates, divorce certificates, copies of passports, proof of funds, proof of address, etc. etc. But again, I'll go into that in more detail another time. It's very rare for the whole process from offer to completion to take less than 3 months. I have seen it literally take years when there was a very complicated situation with a non-conforming lake and a tenant farmer and a house that had been built essentially without permission, but that was thankfully exceptional. So that's pretty much it. So I hope as a brief overview, very brief, that was useful. I'll put a link to a PDF download of the diagram I showed in the video in the description below in case anyone wants it, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions, please get in touch. Cheers.